Hello, I'm Kyle Meisner, and I'm of counsel at the law office of Will M. Helixon. Where am I from? I grew up in Southern Oregon in a small town where I really learned to love nature. I spent a lot of time rafting rivers there, but when it was time to graduate and go to college, I wanted to go someplace new and see something different. I went to Mount Holyoke College, which is in Western Massachusetts. It's the oldest of the Seven Sisters colleges, and I got a great academic education there. Additionally, I played rugby for all 4 years, and I was active in student government. My senior year, I was the class vice president. I graduated in 1996 and was looking for the next thing to do. What did I do after college? After college, I enlisted in the Army. I was what we called at the time a shake and bake specialist. I enlisted as a 92 Alpha supply specialist. And most importantly to me, I had Airborne in my contract. So after basic training and AIT and Airborne school, I was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division in the late 1990s. And while I never got into trouble, I was certainly trouble adjacent. I saw a lot of my friends who got Article 15s. I saw my friends face courts martial, and I really saw firsthand how the legal system can affect soldiers. I loved my time in the Army. I loved jumping out of airplanes, but I knew I wanted more. I wanted more responsibility, and I wanted to be able to affect more soldiers' lives. And so I applied for and got a green to gold ROTC scholarship and went to North Carolina State University for 2 years on an ROTC scholarship. While I was there, I got my master's in public administration, and I was fully into ROTC and graduated as a distinguished military graduate. In 2001, after ROTC, I was commissioned as a signal officer. And my first duty station as an officer was Fort Stewart, Georgia. While at Fort Stewart, I was a platoon leader and an executive officer, but most importantly, at least for my development as an officer, I was the rear detachment commander for a battalion during the initial invasion of Iraq. And let me tell you, at the time, the Army did not know how to do deployments, and they didn't know how to do rear detachment. So I had 100 plus soldiers that were coming in and being pushed forward to deploy. There were soldiers being sent back for courts martial and for being chaptered out of the Army, and I was handling all of that as a junior lieutenant. It was a lot, and I learned a lot, and again, I saw the legal system from a different perspective. I was handing out Article 15s to soldiers, and I was helping our trial counsel prosecute soldiers. So a different perspective as a commander, and I learned a lot then. After that, I PCS'd to Fort Lewis, Washington, where I quickly deployed with the Triple Nickel, the 555 Combat Engineer Brigade, and I deployed as an S1 for a National Guard battalion that was underneath the brigade. And again, just a real learning opportunity where I got to interact with National Guard soldiers and really got an appreciation for what they go through in their balancing of the military and their balancing of their home lives. And it was an awesome experience. After that, the Army couldn't figure out how to station me with my husband. I had finished my commitment to the Army, and I resigned my commission and got out. What did I do when I got out of the Army? Well, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and so I went to law school, and I graduated in 2010 from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. While in law school, I met an Army judge advocate who just talked about the breadth of what she got to do, the cases she was handling, the different experiences she'd had, and also how great the JAG Corps was at stationing her with her husband. So as I got ready to graduate, I looked right and looked left and said, I think I'm going to give this Army another try. I don't want to do what my peers are doing going into big law. And I applied and was just incredibly blessed to be picked up. And so I went back into the Army with 10 plus years of prior service. I started again as a young JAG officer. and it was the best decision ever. So what did I do when I was in the Army as a judge advocate? I started back at Fort Liberty, jumping out of airplanes, this time with 18 Airborne Corps. And what a great place to start as a judge advocate. I really met so many amazing leaders and judge advocates. I did administrative law. I was a trial counsel for 2 years, prosecuting all sorts of cases. And then I was the chief of legal assistance. Now, you probably know legal assistance as the place you go to get something notarized or to get a power of attorney. But what I discovered and what just really made me who I am today is that legal assistance is much more than that. That's where you go when you need to rebut an NCOER or an OER. It's where you go when you get a GOMAR, or where you just have general legal questions and you're being investigated and you don't know what that means. And that nexus of helping soldiers, helping them understand the law, was where I really found my passion. And I loved my time in legal assistance, and it's really informed who I am today. Before I left Fort Liberty, I spent time at the Army Special Operations Aviation Brigade, and there I got to see sort of the other side, what happens on the other side of the fence, and what operators go through and what aviators go through, and that was also incredibly informative. After Fort Liberty, I went to the Judge Advocate General Graduate School, where I got my master's in law, and then I went back to Hawaii, where I was the chief of administrative law. And again, like really everything I've done in my time in the JAG Corps, it really showed me another side of the law. This is where I got to see a lot of investigations, and I got to advise a 2-star general on actions that they would take on these investigations. So I really got to see how the legal process is handled from that side. I also was a preliminary hearing officer on half a dozen more cases before they went to trial, went to a court-martial, and make recommendations to the convening authority on that. So a really great experience. After Hawaii, I moved to the National Capital Region and started at Fort Belvoir at USALSA, the United States Army Legal Services Agency, where I helped to defend the Army against litigation in the Army. I was involved in some FOIA cases. I was involved in a lot of personnel matters. And I really got to see and participate in and make a difference in the Army's response to litigation at the highest level. From there, I went back to what I love. I went back to legal assistance, this time at the Pentagon, where I helped shape and form legal assistance policy for the entire Army, the Reserves, and the National Guard. And again, I saw how the decisions that are made and the policies at the highest level can affect soldiers in their daily lives. After my time at the Pentagon, I went to Fort Carson, where I finished my Army career in another storied division, the 4th Infantry Division. I spent a year as a brigade judge advocate, advising a brigade commander on all of his legal actions, from ethics to investigations to court-martials, seeing how commanders make decisions and really helping them work through the problems that they face on a daily basis. And then I finished again in legal assistance, back with what I love, helping soldiers with their investigations, with their GOMARs, with their NCOER rebuttals, NCOER rebuttals, OER rebuttals, and investigations. So now that I've retired from the Army, what am I doing? What I'm doing is working at the law office of Will M. Helixon as of counsel. And I'm here because of my vast breadth of knowledge and my experience, and I want to help soldiers who are facing difficult legal problems, help them understand what's going on, help them understand their options, and then most importantly, formulate a plan on how together we can find a solution and attack this problem head on. Getting out of the Army, each of the multiple times I've done it, has always been a hard decision. I love the Army, I love what it stands for, and I'm so honored to be able to help soldiers again.